Hi, Bashar.
Good day to you, Molly.
We have a lot of really exciting questions from the audience today.
All right.
The first question regarding this step two of social experiment, how does this apply to spiritual conversations with people who enjoy discussing spiritual matters rather than conversations with religious people who hold strong religious beliefs given to them by that religion? I ask because I enjoy talking with spiritual minded people, including Bashar's spiritual teachings.
Step two does not prevent you from having spiritually oriented discussions. It is simply asking you not to argue with people who have specific beliefs that may be either spiritual or religious. In the sense of sharing is fine. In the sense of attempting to convince someone to change, that is what the step two is attempting to avoid, so that you can remain neutral, share where appropriate, share where there is like-minded discussion. That is fine.
In a recent interview by Darryl, Next Step for Our Planet, Darryl said the vibration of contact and the interstellar alliance is a very narrow bandwidth. He discussed the idea as it relates to conspiracy theories. Does the remark, a very narrow bandwidth, have any secondary meaning? And if so, can you expand on this?
It simply means that there is a specific frequency to the version of Earth that is experiencing contact with certain extraterrestrial societies. There are an infinite number of parallel realities, and many of them may be experiencing contact. But they are experiencing contact in different combinations in different ways, each of which is its own narrow bandwidth. A slight change in the frequency would mean that you're experiencing contact in a different way and even potentially with a different group of extraterrestrial beings. So the idea of our particular interstellar alliance, the organization and what it contains in terms of the civilizations, the degree to which they participate, the degree to which humans on Earth will participate, the degree to which we are involved with you in open contact, has a specific frequency, which is simply another way of saying a narrow bandwidth. So the steps we are giving you is specifically trained to that bandwidth.
Can you explain how to discern between a conspiracy theory versus just new or lesser known information? For example, there are probably people who would call the hybrid agenda a conspiracy theory, and your transmissions don't have conventional scientific evidence or agreement around them. But it still doesn't seem like we were meant to treat this information as a conspiracy theory. And there are other examples in different fields, like progressive work in archaeology and such, that some might treat as conspiracy just because it's different than what's established or traditional. How do we sort out what is conspiracy from what is clear, so to speak?
Do the work, do the research yourself. If something is something you are interested in, don't just follow because one person says something or a number of people says something and go off just the idea that it feels right because you're out of touch with why it is you decide to go along with it. Do the work, do the research. If it is something of interest to you, take the time to do your own investigations. Find out what facts you can, find out what information you can. Make sure that your particular style of research isn't flawed in terms of simply being something that goes off of what you would prefer to feel out of anxiety or any other feeling, and allow yourself the opportunity to take the time to do the research. Don't rush to a conclusion. Remain neutral, even with our information. This is why we give you things like the formula, because when you take the time to apply them, really learn them, then you can get an effect and see that it is something that works. So the idea of any other particular discipline, any other knowledge or information that may be coming to you, if it is important to you, if it is something that you find attractive or you are curious about, take the time to do the research, even if that research takes days, weeks, months, years. You don't have to rush into believing something to be true just because someone says it, just because you might feel some gravitational attraction toward it. Take the time, aside from the attraction, to find out what really makes sense to you. Make sure that your technique of investigation isn't flawed, that you're not making unbased assumptions. Just allow yourself to take the time to find out what about it really is relevant for you, what about it is really relevant to most people. What is it that really makes a difference in your world in a way that can be, to you, verified by making the kind of changes in your reality that allow you to move forward in a beneficial way? A lot of conspiracy theories are, shall we say, peppered with fear, peppered with anxiety, are simply spur of the moment ideas with absolutely no research. And even some people who say that there is, research online, are simply going along with someone who says they've done the research, but they don't really know if their research is flawed. They may simply be going off a hunch. So the idea is, take the time to do the research yourself, no matter how long it takes. Stay neutral until you satisfy yourself completely that it is something worth pursuing, because you're the one deciding that you're attracted to it. And if you are attracted to it, then it's worth pursuing. Take the time to do so in a manner, in a way that really gives you the assurance and the confidence that it is something that can be applied in your life in a relevant way and benefits humanity.
Thank you.
Yes.
Along those lines, this person wants to know if urban legends are included in conspiracy theories.
They can be. In a sense, they're like a close cousin, but again, what I just said still applies. If you are attracted to something like that, curious about it, take the time to do the work. Take the time to do the research. Make sure that your research technique isn't flawed. Make sure that you are actually doing the science, that you're really doing the math, if that is applicable. Allow yourself to remain neutral until you find something that truly represents convincing evidence to you. And ask yourself always the why question. Why would this be important for me to know one way or another? Remain neutral until you can fully answer that question as to why it's important to you. Because then if you have honest self-investigation, you may discover that the why may be based on anxiety, or the why may be based on excitement, or the why may be based on being of service to humanity, or a number of other reasons. But find out why you're interested in it. Don't just accept it at face value.
Is it safe to say that all of us here are involved in a conspiracy theory called ET-UFO? You mentioned focusing on evidence and facts. Will we be provided with such in the next steps, just so open contact is not labeled as a conspiracy theory by others?
Yes, the steps will include things to do that will take you step by step in a direction where you can verify things for yourself when necessary in the appropriate timing. But I also remind you, it doesn't matter what other people think.
Is there any issue with watching or reading educational material that helps us understand more about how conspiracy theories happen, the psychology behind them, and the actual collective facts that they obscure? Basically, not listening to the conspiracy theory itself, but maybe something illuminating about the psychology and such around it.
Yes, that can be a valid part of your research, to understand why conspiracy theories exist, why they proliferate, how they proliferate, the reasons people have for buying into them, so on and so forth. So yes, that can be a valid part of your research. And that's part of what we're talking about. Research it on all levels. Find out what's going on and why humans may be attracted to perpetuate certain theories, conspiracy or otherwise. Ask yourself the why questions. And so that brings psychology into it. Understand the psychology, and you may understand more clearly what is worth pursuing as a theory.
experiment new or different in regards to continuing to raise our frequencies like we've been doing with following the formula. Also, I'm aware our participation is voluntary, but are we kind of like guinea pigs in this experiment? Is this experiment just as new for us as it is for you? And have you done this, or have you done this with other civilizations preparing for open contact?
Yes, we have done it with many civilizations. Now, of course, the details will be different depending upon how their society is structured, of course. But we have done this before many, many times. It is one of the techniques that we put forward to again gauge when individuals and societies are ready for open contact. The idea, again, is that it is now a set of very specific steps. Yes, following the formula is still critical, but the idea is that we're giving you specific actions, since we have said action is the language of physical reality. So the specific steps we are giving you are specific languages in your reality that really allow you, as you say, to walk your talk and get more specific frequencies by taking specific actions that are based on the idea of the formula.
You've mentioned ways of informing our governments about the fact that we, the people, are aware of ET intelligent life forms. Should we continue to do that? What would you like? Would you like to address methods on how we should proceed with it? Will it be part of your future steps and or instructions?
Coming up in step 3.
Oh, wow. This question is about homelessness. How can we better address homelessness on our current Earth? Having once experienced homelessness myself, I strive to assist those in need. Can you suggest innovative solutions for this issue? How has the Interstellar Alliance tackled homelessness on other planets? Can we adopt similar strategies as we transition to a newer, cleaner version of Earth?
It is very rare for us to encounter within the Interstellar Alliance the idea of homelessness in a negative context. It is something relatively unique on your planet in a negative way. So the idea begins with the psychology of individuals, how they feel about themselves, whether they feel worthy or not. It is a very deep and complex subject and must be pursued on the psychological levels as well as the physical levels of providing shelters for people who don't have any. Because some people on your planet are enveloped within a psychology that actually prevents them from having shelter. There have been experiments done on your planet where what you call homeless people have been given the abilities to have homes, the ability to have what they need, been given sums of money to see how they spend it and whether they will use it to take care of themselves. Many of them have simply squandered these resources and refused in any way, shape, or form to avail themselves of what they can to provide shelters for themselves, to take care of themselves when given these tools, because of the deeper psychology that they may attach to the idea of receiving assistance from people. Some individuals who are homeless simply refuse to believe that if they take the help of people, they won't be under their control. They won't be obligated to them, and it is more important to them to remain free of those obligations as they see it. It doesn't mean they actually would be obligated, but if their psychology makes them see the idea of receiving help as an obligation that limits their freedom, their sense of freedom, they may actually choose to remain homeless in spite of the fact that they could be helped by others. So you have to explore the deep psychology, and you have to allow people to find their own self-worth. Now, again, this is in the negative context we are speaking. There are people who simply do enjoy living in the outdoors without a standard or traditional sense of a home, who can provide for themselves very easily as if they are on a perpetual camping trip. So you have to again assess whether or not the person is actually choosing this for a variety of reasons that may actually be positive, or may have something to do with the life path they have chosen that can be beneficial for their soul's growth or others around them for their growth by interacting with a person who is free to engage with nature in a way that is non-traditional, outside and without a traditional shelter. So again, you have to assess what is going on, whether this is being created positively or negatively, whether it is part of their soul's path to learn something, how it affects them and how it affects others, but more deeply the psychology of what they think of their own self-worth. And then where you can be of assistance where it's appropriate, you can, again, pool your resources or rearrange your resources to do build shelters for people, as many people do, to provide shelters for those that truly want it, truly are capable of taking care of it, truly honoring the help that they are receiving and improving their own self-esteem and self-worth by having a place that supports them. So there are many different avenues and many different directions you can take with regard to this particular situation. And I would suggest that you investigate them all, but be aware of the deep psychology behind what people are choosing to experience, consciously or subconsciously.
Thank you.
Yes.
Regarding the exercise of putting a picture of a gray in the window of your home, are any ETs practicing by putting a picture of a human in their window?
Some ETs are playing with that idea. It is not something that is as necessary for them as it is for you, because we can always observe you anyway. So, but some of them, especially some of the hybrid children, are sort of playing with that idea to get used to living among you.
It's fun to think about.
Yes.
This person says, I was wondering if your culture has any human subculture they favor, that they like the vibe or aesthetic in particular.
There are some cultures on your planet that have similar traits to some of the aspects of our civilization, and therefore we could say we can relate to it a little bit more easily. We are similar in vibration in certain limited ways and certain limited expressions, but we don't play favorites. So I won't answer it that way.
So you can't tell us just a few of some of the subcultures that you like?
Again, I'm not playing favorites. Okay. So the idea is, again, there are certain cultures on your planet that do have certain expressions that are similar, not identical, but similar to some of the traits of my civilization. For example, the idea of the philosophy of Zen or Tao may be very similar to some of the ways that we view reality and experience reality, similar to the idea of the formula. But again, we don't play favorites. I'm not going to say we like one more than another. That's not how we operate. But we recognize that there may be certain traits in certain cultures or certain belief systems within certain cultures that may have some similarity to what we are familiar with in our society. And that's as far as we will go.
Thank you. Are human beings the densest beings in the universe? Do you ever feel frustrated by our dumbness?
No, because again, we understand you are on a path to learn something. You are not the densest we have encountered. There are others that are as dense or denser. But the idea is, again, as we have said, you are strong souls, strong spirits to have chosen to be in a reality where you forget completely who you are, or as completely as possible to forget who you are. So the idea of the challenges that you have imposed upon yourself means that you are a strong master graduating class. And we certainly applaud your bravery and willingness and courage to experience these things for your own soul's growth, so that your growth can accelerate in ways that other civilizations may not be choosing.
What is something that most civilizations in the universe do not understand or comprehend about humans that seem very alien to them?
Well, one of the things I just mentioned, It is quite challenging for some civilizations, even members of my own society without training like a first contact specialist receives, to understand how it is possible for someone to forget as deeply as humans on Earth do who they really are, to forget their connection to spirit, their connection to source. It is almost unfathomable to many beings that such forgetting can occur.